My name is Jenna Collins. I'm 32 years old, and until a few weeks ago, I lived a quiet, almost invisible life in Austin, Texas. I was just another woman trying to stay ahead of rent, juggling deadlines and meal prepping cheap pasta for the week. I worked in data analytics, nothing fancy, but it paid the bills. I had no idea that a single decision, a $2 scratch-off ticket at a gas station on my way home from work, would blow my life wide open. That ticket, it was worth $5 million. Overnight, I went from budgeting every dollar to staring at a number I couldn't even emotionally process. And like most people raised to believe family comes first, I told the ones closest to me, my parents, my little brother Luke, and my best friend of 10 years, Samantha Blake, the woman who had been there through breakups, job layoffs, late-night ramen, and Target runs. I thought sharing the news would bring joy. I thought they'd be proud of me. Maybe even happy. They weren't. 2 weeks later, I walked into my apartment after grabbing lunch and froze. There at my dining table sat Samantha, pen in hand, eyes calm, forging my name on a $5 million check. She didn't panic. She didn't even stop writing. And then Luke stepped out of the kitchen holding his phone like he was coordinating a bank transfer. He looked up and said, "We were hoping to finish before you got back, like this was some casual errand." I stood there watching the two people I trusted most in the world actively steal from me. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, actually. And you know what's wild? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt cold, numb. Like something inside me snapped back into place, because that was the moment I finally saw it. This wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about control, about entitlement, about all the years I had played the quiet, responsible one while everyone else made messes and expected me to clean them up or step aside. This time, I wasn't stepping aside. If you think this is just another story about someone winning the lottery, you're wrong. This is a story about betrayal from the people you never expect it from. About waking up to the truth of your relationships, and about what happens when the quiet one finally says no. So hit that subscribe button, stay with me, because trust me, you haven't heard the wildest part yet. Welcome to the moment my life truly began. You know how some families say things like, "We love our kids equally"? Yeah, that was never the case in my house. I was the firstborn, Jenna, the dependable one, the straight-A student, the quiet fixer. My little brother Luke was the one with the potential. We grew up in a modest 3-bedroom home in Round Rock, just outside Austin. Our dad was a high school football coach. Our mom worked part-time at a dentist's office. We weren't poor, but every dollar was counted. At least it was when it came to me. When I needed braces in 7th grade, it took a year of "we'll see." When Luke wanted to try guitar lessons, he had a Fender and private instruction within a week. At first, I thought I was imagining it. You know, the small things. My science fair ribbons got stuck on the fridge for a day or two. Luke's crayon drawings were framed like they were the next Van Gogh. But as I got older, it got harder to ignore. When I got into UT Austin on a partial scholarship, I picked up 2 part-time jobs to make up the rest. My parents said, "We're proud of your independence." When Luke dropped out of community college for the 3rd time, they helped him lease a downtown studio to figure out his direction. My mom's favorite phrase was, "He just needs a little more time." He's got that creative spark. I used to wonder what I had, other than bills and expectations. Then there was Samantha. We met during freshman orientation. She had this way of making people feel seen, like your story mattered. Maybe that's why I let her in so easily. We became inseparable. Late-night study sessions, $5 movie Tuesdays, sharing microwaved mac and cheese while talking about our dreams. And when I didn't go home for holidays because my parents were too focused on Luke's newest crisis, I spent them with her. She was my chosen family. At least that's what I believed. After college, Samantha moved to Austin too. She got into PR. I stuck with data. Our lives stayed intertwined. Brunch on Sundays, venting about work, wine nights when things fell apart. She knew everything, every financial struggle, every doubt, every time I felt like I was running on fumes trying to hold everything together. She was the one who always said, "You deserve more, Jenna." "You always have." So when I told her about the lottery win, she cried. She hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "Finally," she whispered. "Something good for you." I believed her. I told her before I told my own parents. I trusted her to help me figure out what came next. She said all the right things. "Don't rush, be smart, stay quiet. Let's plan." And God, I was so grateful not to feel alone in it. But looking back now, I should have seen it. The way she subtly steered things, suggesting I use her cousin's accountant, offering to help manage paperwork, even joking about signing over half to your honorary sister. I laughed it off, thought it was just her way. But that's the thing about trust. It doesn't disappear all at once. It unravels, thread by thread, and you don't realize how thin it's gotten until something yanks hard enough to break it. That moment would come soon. But before it did, I had to face the other elephant in the room, my family. I waited a few days after claiming the prize to tell them. I was nervous, sure, but also, maybe foolishly, hopeful. I thought, maybe now they'll see me, not just the background support system, but as someone who built something, who made it. Dinner was the usual chaos, Dad talking about football season, Mom setting the table like we were still 10 years old, Luke showing off a new business idea involving NFTs and fitness coaching. When I finally shared the news, the room went silent. Then Mom gasped. Dad said, "Are you serious?" And Luke? He smiled like he'd just hit the jackpot too. And within minutes, the conversation shifted from, "Wow, congrats Jenna," to, "This is perfect timing for Luke's startup." I kid you not, my mother said, "This could finally get your brother the launch pad he needs." I hadn't even gotten the money yet. I hadn't even told them what I planned to do, but they already had plans for me. And for Luke. The truth is, even before the lottery, I was tired. Not just the kind of tired you cure with sleep, but soul tired. I had done everything right, got the degree, landed the stable job, paid my bills on time, said no to brunches I couldn't afford, drove the same 2011 Toyota Corolla I bought used in college, and still, most months ended with me holding my breath at the ATM. I wasn't failing. But I was barely staying afloat. That's what no one tells you about being the responsible one. You don't get rewarded. You just get asked to carry more. My job in data analytics wasn't glamorous, but it was something I was good at. Numbers made sense. People, not so much. My coworkers were decent, some even friendly, but I kept to myself. I wasn't antisocial. I just didn't have energy for office politics or pretending I was okay when most days I was surviving on caffeine and podcasts just to feel something. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in East Austin, nothing fancy. The second bedroom wasn't for guests or a home gym. It was my office, laundry overflow, and emotional storage closet. I had no savings to speak of. Student loans chewed up over $600 a month. I budgeted like a machine. Grocery list: beans, rice, frozen veggies, maybe chicken if it was on sale. I knew how to make $40 stretch 2 weeks. I clipped coupons like it was a competitive sport. That Thursday started like any other. I remember because it rained. One of those Texas storms that rolls in without warning. Thunder like war drums, sheets of water slapping the windshield. I stayed late at work, finishing a report no one would read. By the time I left the office, it was already 8 p.m., and I was exhausted, starving, and annoyed that I'd forgotten to put gas in the car that morning. I pulled into this dingy gas station off I-35, the kind with flickering lights and a guy standing outside vaping like it was his full-time job. As I filled the tank, $25, just enough to last till payday, I noticed a bright sign in the window. Jackpot, $5,000. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe the rain, maybe the exhaustion, maybe that tiny whisper that said, "What if?" So I went inside, grabbed a Gatorade, and slid a $2 scratcher across the counter. The clerk, this teenager with messy hair and dead eyes, smirked and said, "Maybe today's your lucky day." "Doubt it," I muttered. I tossed the ticket in my purse without looking at it. Drove home through the storm, cursing at traffic lights and hydroplaning once near Riverside. When I finally got home, I microwaved leftover stir-fry, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed on the couch. I remember scrolling on my phone, half watching reruns of The Office. Then I found the ticket at the bottom of my bag. I scratched it out with a dull pen cap, barely paying attention, until I saw the numbers, $5,000. I blinked. Looked again, my hand started to shake. I thought it was a misprint. I Googled the ticket series, the symbols, the prize tiers. I checked it 5 times. Then I sat frozen, ticket in one hand, phone in the other, pulse pounding like I'd run a marathon. Was this real? Was this happening? I texted Samantha first. "Call me." "Emergency, not bad, just huge." She called in under a minute. "Are you pregnant?" She laughed. "No," I whispered. "I think I just won $5 million. She was at my apartment 20 minutes later with wine and Thai takeout. We sat on the floor, staring at the ticket like it might grow legs and run away. That night was electric. We dreamed. What would I do? Pay off debt? Buy a house? Travel? Donate? Invest? Would I quit my job? What if someone found out? What if it was a scam? Samantha was a rock. She looked up the claims process, checked the lottery commission site, walked me through next steps. She even made a spreadsheet. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar, hope. Hope that I could finally breathe, that maybe life was about to get easier, that maybe, just maybe, I had made it. But here's the thing about sudden fortune. It doesn't change people. It just shows you who they've always been. If you've ever lived paycheck to paycheck, you know that tiny feeling you get when something goes slightly right. Like finding a forgotten 20 in your coat pocket, or realizing your rent didn't go up this year. It's small, almost not worth celebrating, but it feels huge because it breaks the rhythm of surviving. That's what buying that lottery ticket felt like. A tiny moment of rebellion against the grind. I was standing at Pump 4, late on a Thursday night, rain pounding like it was angry. I'd just worked an 11-hour day. I was exhausted, hungry, and mad at myself for forgetting again to get gas earlier. I went inside to grab a Gatorade, and right by the counter was a cardboard display. Jackpot $5 million. I don't know what made me do it. I almost never play, but something in me said, why the hell not? So I added a $2 scratch-off to my purchase. The cashier, this kid who couldn't be older than 19, grinned and said, "Maybe tonight's your night." "Not likely," I laughed, tucking the ticket into my coat pocket. I didn't even look at it when I got home. I was too busy shoveling leftover rice and veggies into my mouth while half watching reruns of The Office. I was scrolling through Instagram, watching everyone live their fake, perfect lives, when I remembered the ticket. I grabbed it off the kitchen counter, scratched it out with a butter knife, barely paying attention, until I saw it. The first number matched, then the second. I blinked, leaned in. Third, fourth. By the time I scratched off the last number and saw all 6 matched, I stopped breathing. I froze. Completely, heart pounding in my throat, hands suddenly cold. I stared at the card, then looked away, then stared again like I was afraid it might change if I blinked. I Googled the symbols. Checked the official Texas Lottery website. Matched everything 3 times. $5 million. My stomach flipped. I felt dizzy. For a moment I thought I might throw up. Or cry, or both. I did what I always do in moments of panic. I called Samantha. "Hey," she answered. "You okay?" You sound weird. I think I just won the lottery, I whispered. She didn't laugh, not even a second. Are you serious? I'm not sure, I said. Can you come over, like, now? She was at my apartment in less than 20 minutes. No makeup, hoodie, flip-flops. She brought wine and 2 gas station donuts. When I handed her the ticket, her eyes went wide. She sat cross-legged on the rug, phone in one hand, comparing my numbers to the official draw. Oh my God, she whispered. Jenna, it's real. We stared at each other for a second. Then we screamed. We laughed, we cried. I collapsed into her arms, shaking. I had spent my whole life preparing for nothing good to ever last, for the other shoe to drop, for plans to fail. But in that moment, the impossible had happened. We stayed up all night. She brought out her laptop and started making lists. Things I could do, people I might want to contact. You have to get a financial advisor, she said. A good one and a lawyer, and you need to stay quiet. You can't just tell people this. Do you know how crazy people get? I nodded like I understood, but the truth was, I was still in shock. The idea that I had won something this big, that I could finally breathe, it felt like I had stepped out of my own life into someone else's. Jenna, she said, pulling up a spreadsheet she had already started building, this changes everything, and it did. For a little while, I let myself dream. No more rent, no more student loans. I could buy a house. I could quit my job, or at least take a break and figure out what I actually wanted to do. I could help people. Maybe donate to shelters or women's orgs. I could even travel, go to Greece like I always said I would. The next morning, she insisted we drive straight to the Texas Lottery Claim Center. Let's verify it officially, she said. I'll come with you. She brought folders. Snacks, a backup charger. Honestly, she was more prepared than I was. At the claim center, they scanned my ticket, checked my ID, and confirmed what we already knew. I was now officially a lottery winner. They gave me options. Take the lump sum or receive payments over 20 years. I chose the lump sum. I didn't want to wait. I didn't trust the world to keep giving me good things. I posed for the big check photo, cheesy grin, shaking hands, but it was just a prop. Funds will be electronically transferred in 10 to 14 business days, the rep said. I left with paperwork, a checklist, and a warning. Keep this quiet until you've got a plan. People will come out of the woodwork. I remember glancing at Samantha in the parking lot. She smiled wide. See, she said. I told you something good would happen. And she was right. Something good had happened, but I had no idea that something unforgivable was coming right behind it. At first it was subtle. Like condensation on a glass, you don't really notice it until your fingers slip. Samantha was still the same bubbly, ride-or-die best friend she'd always been. She texted me every morning, checked in on how I was sleeping, reminded me to eat, breathe, relax. You've been under pressure for years, babe, she'd say. Let yourself enjoy this. It felt good, warm, like someone had my back when the weight of that 5 million kept pressing on my chest like a secret too big to carry alone. But little things started piling up. The first time was during brunch, 2 days after the claim was confirmed. She brought up taxes. You know, they're gonna take a chunk, like what, 40%? You should really open a separate account. I know a banker at my firm. Super discreet. I nodded. She wasn't wrong, but it was the way she said my firm, like we were some sort of unit. Like this was our project now. The next day, she showed up with a glossy folder, custom tabs, highlighted notes, color-coded sections. Inside, a pre-filled application for a new joint account. Under both our names. I laughed. Samantha, what is this? She smiled. It's just a backup in case anything happens. You can set the rules. 2 signatures for any movement, I swear. It's for emergencies, just redundancy, you know? It sounded smart. Logical. She always had a way of making things seem like they were my idea, but I didn't sign it, not that day. The following week, she invited me to dinner. Her treat, she insisted. A swanky place downtown I couldn't have afforded even with 3 paychecks. She raised a glass and toasted. To us, finally stepping into the lives we deserve. Us. Again with the US. She slid an envelope across the table. Don't freak out, she said with a nervous giggle. Just wanted to show you some options. Inside were quotes from interior designers, luxury travel agents, and a personal stylist, all under a heading labeled Post-Win Rebranding Plan. I stared at her. Are you serious? Jenna, come on, she said. You're a millionaire now. You deserve to feel like one. She wasn't wrong. I had dreamed of a closet with more than clearance rack blazers and 3 pairs of sensible shoes. But this felt off, like she'd been planning it long before the ticket ever scratched. Then came the friend referral. She introduced me to Mark, a financial advisor she trusted completely. Said he handled high net worth clients, was ultra discreet, and could get me on track without raising any red flags. Our meeting was fine. He was polished, overly polite, asked all the right questions, but something about it felt rehearsed. When I said I'd think about it, he smiled just a little too tightly. Later that night, I Googled him, found his LinkedIn, then clicked on the Mutuals tab. He wasn't just Samantha's colleague. He was her ex. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The joint account suggestion, the designer packages, the banker friend, the ex-boyfriend turned advisor. Had this been happening all along? Had she been laying bricks on this road for years? And if so, what kind of friend is that? The next morning, I confronted her. Casual, light. Hey, did you date Mark? She didn't even blink. Oh my God, years ago, barely even counts. Why? I shrugged. Just curious. He seemed familiar. She laughed. Well, don't worry, he's all business now, just wants to help. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her, because the alternative meant I had to accept the unthinkable, that the person I trusted most might not just be helping me manage my new life, but trying to control it. The turning point came 3 days later. I was cleaning out my inbox, sorting through bank emails, junk promos, and notifications from the lottery commission. I almost missed it. A flagged message from a bank I didn't recognize. Subject line, confirmation, secondary signer approval complete. The account name. Collins Blake Holdings. My blood went cold. I opened it. Routing numbers, account summaries, all real. And my name was listed, spelled perfectly, but the approval timestamp? I hadn't touched anything that day. I checked my sent folder. Empty. My signature? Not mine. Not even close. The panic hit me like a freight train. I called the bank immediately. Spoke to a representative, asked for details. They couldn't say much, just that the account had been created in person. With ID. Whose ID? Mine. Or a copy of mine. I called Samantha. Straight to voicemail. I texted. We need to talk. Now. No reply. I sat there staring at my screen, stomach churning. And that's when I realized this wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just being helpful. This was a setup. And I just walked into it with open arms. After everything with Samantha, the forged signature, the fake account, the silence, I thought I'd reached my limit. I was wrong, because nothing could have prepared me for what came next, telling my family. See, I'd put it off for weeks. I had every excuse lined up. The money's not in yet. I need a plan first. Too much is happening. But the real reason, I was scared. Scared that the people who raised me, who were supposed to love me unconditionally, would see dollar signs instead of their daughter. Turns out that fear was wildly optimistic. It started with Sunday dinner. A tradition I rarely skipped, not because I loved it, but because obligation is a hell of a drug. It was always the same. Mom's overcooked meatloaf, Dad glued to the football game, and Luke, my younger brother, giving some half-baked pitch for his newest big idea. This week, it was a kombucha truck. Last month, it was an NFT yoga app. Before that, it was importing artisan incense from Peru. None of them lasted more than 6 weeks. But there I was, chopping vegetables in the kitchen, rehearsing what I'd say. "You seem distracted," Mom said, eyeing me. "Everything okay?" I took a breath. "Actually, something happened." She stopped mid-slice, turned. "At work?" "No, bigger." I forced a smile. "I won the lottery." Silence, for a beat too long. Then, "Like, how much?" Dad called from the couch. 5 million. Another beat. Then Mom shrieked, "Oh my Lord," and rushed to hug me. Hug me. A woman who hadn't voluntarily hugged me in years. "Are you serious?" Dad stood up. Luke leaned around the corner, his eyes wide. "For real?" "For real," I said, trying to control my voice. They erupted into noise, questions, cheers, disbelief. For about 30 seconds, I actually let myself feel it. That maybe, just maybe, I'd get the moment I'd hoped for. Recognition, celebration. But then Mom said the words that shattered it all. "This is perfect timing. Luke, tell Jenna about your situation." I blinked. "What?" Luke looked sheepish, then conveniently humble. "I wasn't going to say anything, but I've been trying to launch my kombucha business. I'm just a little short on cash." "How short?" I asked, voice flat. He looked at Dad. "About the $85,000, maybe $90K, depending on the truck." My mouth fell open. "We're not saying you have to," Mom added quickly, "but family helps family," Dad chimed in. "With what you've got, it's practically pocket change." I stared at them. I haven't even received the money yet, and even when I do, it's not open season. "Sweetheart," Mom said gently, "you've been blessed. Wouldn't it feel good to lift your brother up too?" Lift him up? The same brother who blew through 3 college majors, 4 jobs, and 2 inheritance checks? The same brother who once said I was too boring to be rich? "I'm not saying I won't help," I said carefully. "But I'm still figuring things out. I need time. I need a financial plan." Dad's tone shifted. "Jenna, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make real change for all of us." "For me," I corrected. "It happened to me." Luke spoke up, voice suddenly sharp. "Wow, you don't have to be selfish about it." My jaw clenched. "Selfish?" "I've paid my own bills since I was 19. No one bailed me out. I didn't ask for favors." "That's because you never needed help," Mom snapped. "You always had it figured out." "No, I didn't," I said louder than I meant to. "I struggled. You just never noticed." Because Luke always needed more. The room went quiet, then Dad muttered, "Well, this attitude explains why Samantha's been so stressed." I froze. "Excuse me?" He blinked. "Didn't she tell you? She called, said she was worried. Said you've been shutting people out." My stomach turned. Samantha had talked to my parents? Behind my back? "We were just trying to understand what's going on," Mom added. "She thought we could help guide you." I wanted to scream, because that's what it was. A coalition. A quiet, subtle alliance of the people I trusted most. Whispering, guiding, manipulating. And I had no idea how far it went. I stood up. "I need to go." Mom grabbed my wrist. "Jenna, don't be dramatic." "We're your family." I pulled away. "Then start acting like it." As I walked out, I heard Luke say, "You'll come around. That money's not going to keep you warm forever." Maybe not. But it sure as hell could buy me space. And right now, that was worth every penny. At first, it was subtle, like condensation on a glass. You don't really notice it until your fingers slip. Samantha was still the same bubbly, ride-or-die best friend she'd always been. She texted me every morning, checked in on how I was sleeping, reminded me to eat, breathe, relax. "You've been under pressure for years, babe," she'd say. "Let yourself enjoy this." It felt good, warm. Like someone had my back when the weight of that 5 million kept pressing on my chest like a secret too big to carry alone. But little things started piling up. The first time was during brunch, 2 days after the claim was confirmed. She brought up taxes. "You know, they're gonna take a chunk, like what, 40%? You should really open a separate account. I know a banker at my firm." Super discreet. I nodded. She wasn't wrong, but it was the way she said my firm, like we were some sort of unit. Like this was our project now. The next day, she showed up with a glossy folder, custom tabs, highlighted notes, color-coded sections. Inside, a pre-filled application for a new joint account. Under both our names, I laughed. "Samantha, what is this?" She smiled. "It's just a backup in case anything happens. You can set the rules. 2 signatures for any movement, I swear. It's for emergencies, just redundancy, you know?" It sounded smart. Logical. She always had a way of making things seem like they were my idea. But I didn't sign it, not that day. The following week, she invited me to dinner. Her treat, she insisted. A swanky place downtown I couldn't have afforded even with 3 paychecks. She raised a glass and toasted. To us, finally stepping into the lives we deserve. Us. Again with the us. She slid an envelope across the table. "Don't freak out," she said with a nervous giggle. "Just wanted to show you some options." Inside were quotes from interior designers, luxury travel agents, and a personal stylist, all under a heading labeled Post-Win Rebranding Plan. I stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Jenna, come on," she said. "You're a millionaire now. You deserve to feel like one." She wasn't wrong. I had dreamed of a closet with more than clearance rack blazers and 3 pairs of sensible shoes. But this felt off, like she'd been planning it long before the ticket ever scratched. Then came the friend referral. She introduced me to Mark, a financial advisor she trusted completely, said he handled high-net-worth clients, was ultra-discreet, and could get me on track without raising any red flags. Our meeting was fine. He was polished, overly polite, asked all the right questions, but something about it felt rehearsed. When I said I'd think about it, he smiled just a little too tightly. Later that night, I Googled him, found his LinkedIn, then clicked on the Mutuals tab. He wasn't just Samantha's colleague. He was her ex. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The joint account suggestion, the designer packages, the banker friend, the ex-boyfriend turned advisor. Had this been happening all along? Had she been laying bricks on this road for years? And if so, what kind of friend is that? The next morning, I confronted her, casual, light. "Hey, did you date Mark?" She didn't even blink. "Oh my God, years ago, barely even counts." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just curious. He seemed familiar." She laughed. "Well, don't worry, he's all business now, just wants to help." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. Because the alternative meant I had to accept the unthinkable, that the person I trusted most might not just be helping me manage my new life, but trying to control it. The turning point came 3 days later. I was cleaning out my inbox, sorting through bank emails, junk promos, and notifications from the Lottery Commission. I almost missed it. A flagged message from a bank I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Confirmation, secondary signer approval complete." The account name, Collins Blake Holdings. My blood went cold. I opened it. Routing numbers, account summaries, all real, and my name was listed, spelled perfectly. But the approval timestamp? I hadn't touched anything that day. I checked my sent folder. Empty. My signature? Not mine. Not even close. The panic hit me like a freight train. I called the bank immediately. Spoke to a representative, asked for details. They couldn't say much, just that the account had been created in person with ID. Whose ID? Mine? Or a copy of mine? I called Samantha, straight to voicemail. I texted, "We need to talk. Now." No reply. I sat there staring at my screen, stomach churning. And that's when I realized this wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just being helpful. This was a setup. And I just walked into it with open arms. There's a moment, right before betrayal goes from theory to fact, where your brain tries to protect you. It tells you, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe you're overthinking. Maybe this is just a bad dream. But when I unlocked my apartment door and saw my brother and my mother inside, going through my desk drawers like they had every right to be there, that moment snapped in half. Let me back up. After discovering the Dropbox recordings, I stayed at a hotel. I wasn't taking chances, not with Luke knowing where I lived. Samantha, maybe she wouldn't break in, but Luke. He'd already proven he didn't know boundaries. I had filed for an official cease and desist, locked down my accounts, and had Mira working on potential restraining orders. But I'd forgotten one thing, the emergency key. A year ago, I gave it to Mom when I got the flu and needed someone to drop off groceries. I never asked for it back. That's on me. It was a Thursday afternoon when I realized I needed a few important documents. Original contracts, tax info, some backup hard drives I hadn't transferred yet. I told myself I'd be quick, 10 minutes in, 10 minutes out. I should have known better. As I approached my apartment, I noticed something off. The door wasn't damaged, but slightly ajar. Not visibly kicked in, just unlocked. My pulse spiked. I stepped inside slowly. The air smelled faintly of my lavender spray, but mixed with something else, burnt paper. I turned the corner, and there they were. My mother standing by my coffee table, holding my decorative brass trash can. Inside, a small fire was dying out, blackened edges curling up from a piece of paper. My brother beside her, holding a lighter like it was no big deal. "What the hell are you doing?" They froze. My mother looked startled, guilty. "Luke?" "Not so much." He stepped forward. "We were hoping to talk to you first, but since you're here, this saves us time." I glanced at the trash can and recognized what had been burned. The commemorative lottery check. The oversized glossy photo prop with my name on it, the one from the day I claimed my prize. "You thought that was the real check?" I said, half laughing, half livid. "It was a symbol," Mom snapped. "Of everything you've refused to share," Luke chimed in. "We warned you, family isn't supposed to hoard blessings." I stared at them, disbelief fighting with rage. "You broke into my home." "No," Mom corrected. "You gave us the key. A year ago, for groceries. Not to ransack my life and play pyromaniac." "We're your family," she said, like that explained it all. "And I am a grown woman whose autonomy you just violated." Luke crossed his arms. "You left us no choice." "You're letting money ruin everything." "No, you are." The worst part? Neither of them looked particularly sorry. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment thing, it was calculated, controlled. Luke had probably timed it, knew I'd be at work, knew what drawer I kept the lottery packet in. Knew just enough to make a mess, but not enough to realize how little that check actually mattered. "You didn't even destroy anything valuable," I said. "The real money's in secured accounts." The actual check was just for PR. They blinked. "You're lying," Luke said. I pulled out my phone, opened my bank app, and showed them the deposit confirmation. "Try again." My mother's face fell, not because of the money, but because the manipulation hadn't worked. "Jenna," she said softly, shifting tactics, "we're scared." "You're changing," becoming cold, guarded. "I wonder why," I said, voice like steel. Luke stepped closer. "Just give me $80,000. That's nothing to you now, and I'll be gone." "No more issues." "Gone? Luke, you've said that every year since you turned 21. You're 30 now. And still failing upward on someone else's dime." "I'm trying," he hissed, "but I need support." "No, you need accountability," he sneered. "Says the girl who got lucky." I laughed. Sharp, bitter. "I've worked since I was 15. Paid my own way through college. You want to talk about luck? Let's talk about you being coddled into incompetence." Mom gasped. "Don't speak to your brother that way." "Then stop treating him like a child and me like an ATM." For a beat, silence. Just the crackle of scorched paper. Then Luke threw the lighter onto the couch and stormed toward the door. "You'll regret this," he said. "I already do." He slammed the door behind him. My mother stayed, eyes misty. "I miss who you used to be." I didn't flinch. "No, you miss who I was when I didn't challenge you." When I swallowed the imbalance quietly. "That Jenna's gone." She opened her mouth, then closed it and left. I locked the door behind her, deadbolt, chain, everything. Then I sank onto the floor and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The weight of betrayal. It doesn't hit like a bomb. It settles like dust, layer by layer, until you realize everything familiar has been buried. But that day, I stopped waiting to be rescued. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the background support system. I wasn't the dependable firstborn silently clapping from the wings. I was the one holding the pen now. And the story was about to get rewritten, on my terms. After they left, after the shouting, the flames, the broken trust, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood in the silence of my apartment, watching ash swirl inside a cheap brass trash can, and realized something terrifyingly liberating. I was done. Not done being angry. That would come later. Not done being hurt. God, that would take years. But done waiting for them to change. Done explaining myself to people who'd already decided what I owed them. Done playing small so others could feel big. The very next morning, I called Mira Caldwell, my attorney. "I need to move," I said. Her response was instant. "Do you have somewhere lined up?" "Not yet, but I want a secure building, keycard entry." Cameras. Something they can't access with a spare key and a sob story. "Smart," she said. "I'll get you a shortlist by noon." By that evening, I signed a lease on a short-term rental in a downtown high-rise with 24/7 security and no forwarding address. Then I called a locksmith for my old place, emergency lock change, every cylinder, every bolt. I had the building manager install a peephole camera, not because I'd stay, but because I had to go back and finish packing. I was efficient, clinical, 3 days, 6 boxes, 1 moving truck. During that time, the calls came in waves. My mother left voicemails, some tearful, some cold. "You're making a mistake." Luke sent texts, bouncing between rage and guilt. "I said I was sorry. You gonna ruin everything over one argument?" My father tried to play mediator. "Let's just sit down like adults and talk this through." The only adult in this situation was me, and I wasn't negotiating with emotional arsonists. So I silenced my phone and focused on what I could control. Mira had already drafted restraining order paperwork, standard civil protection filings in the state of Texas. We were gathering evidence, photos of the scorched check, time-stamped messages, the Dropbox leak, the recorded Zoom call. "Do you want to press charges?" she asked. I hesitated, because that's the worst part of betrayal. It doesn't just hurt. It makes you feel guilty for defending yourself. "No," I said, "not yet. I just want distance." "Safety, time. Then let's get it in writing," she replied. "Boundary enforcement backed by law." She also advised I change banks, new accounts, new institutions. No shared info, Nothing that could trace back to Samantha or Luke. She even brought in a digital security consultant who scrubbed my online presence, locked down my socials, and encrypted all my financial data behind multi-factor firewalls. By the weekend, I was moved in. My new apartment smelled like fresh paint and industrial carpet, sterile. Quiet, but safe. And for the first time since holding that lottery ticket, I slept through the night. It didn't mean I wasn't still grieving, because yes, what happened was a kind of death. Not just the death of trust or of a friendship or a family dynamic, but the death of who I used to be. The Jenna who absorbed guilt like a sponge. The Jenna who said yes just to keep the peace. The Jenna who gave without asking and let everyone else decide what she deserved. That Jenna had died the moment her brother lit a fire in her living room and dared to call it love. In her place was someone new. Someone who didn't just protect her money, but her boundaries, her future, her peace. And if that meant being called selfish, so be it. Because when you've spent your whole life giving away pieces of yourself to people who treat it like spare change, choosing yourself feels radical. Almost dangerous, but also holy. I started going to therapy twice a week. The kind that made you sit in uncomfortable silence until the truth boiled over. The kind that forced you to admit things like, no, they don't get to treat me this way just because they're family. My therapist, Dr. Lane, gave me a phrase I repeated like scripture. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and still love myself. At work, I gave notice. Told them I'd received a private inheritance, not quite a lie, and offered to stay on for a clean transition. My boss was stunned but respectful, said he'd miss my spreadsheets. I wouldn't miss his passive-aggressive emails. In the meantime, I worked with Mira on establishing a private trust, one that would hold the bulk of the money, inaccessible without multi-tiered authorization. She also helped me begin building a small foundation focused on something that suddenly felt very personal: financial literacy for young women. If I had known at 18 what I knew now at 32, how to protect your money, your voice, your worth, I might have dodged a decade of emotional debt. So I decided to build that lifeline for someone else. I wasn't just rebuilding my life, I was reclaiming it. And the funny thing, I didn't feel powerful. I felt quiet, still, like I'd finally stepped out of a storm I didn't know I'd been standing in my whole life. After the dust settled, I found myself staring at my new apartment's floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. Glass and skyline, clear lines, clean cuts. It felt like breathing in a space that didn't expect me to shrink. The old Jenna would have filled it with secondhand furniture and self-doubt. The new me? I filled it with light. And silence. Blessed, steady silence. There were no footsteps I didn't trust, no backdoor keys I forgot to reclaim. Just the sound of my own decisions echoing off the walls. I wasn't just hiding anymore. I was rebuilding. The money, when it finally landed in my new trust account, didn't feel real at first. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I had worked so hard for so long with so little. I didn't know how to function without the weight of lack pressing against my chest. But Mira, my lawyer, reminded me that having money didn't mean I owed anyone. It meant I had a responsibility to myself, so I started with the basics. I paid off my student loans. All 412 of them, gone. The day I hit that final confirm payment button, I cried. Not because I was free, but because I hadn't realized how deeply that debt had threaded itself into my identity. I created an emergency fund, 6 figures, untouched, in a separate account labeled only for Jenna. I hired a financial planner, one not connected to anyone I knew. Her name was Anita, and she was blunt in the way I appreciated. Don't let guilt be your investment strategy, she said. Guilt doesn't compound. Regret does. We put together a portfolio focused on long-term security, nothing flashy, a blend of mutual funds, real estate trusts, and ethical investments. She taught me about risk profiles, exit strategies, and how to say no without explaining myself. It felt like learning a new language, one no one had ever bothered to teach me growing up, and then I did something truly radical. I rested. I took 3 months off, no emails, no alarm clocks, no scrambling to meet deadlines that drained me dry. I let myself wander through bookstores in the middle of the day, took long walks along Ladybird Lake. I even signed up for a woodworking class just because the smell of sawdust made me feel alive. And I started therapy in earnest. Dr. Lane helped me unpack years of emotional debt no financial planner could touch. We talked about family enmeshment, invisible labor, the quiet trauma of always being the strong one. We talked about how betrayal doesn't just break trust, it breaks the mirror you used to see yourself through. And week by week, I started seeing myself more clearly. I wasn't cold. I wasn't selfish. I was finally honest. And with that honesty came clarity. I set digital boundaries, blocked numbers, filtered emails. Gave myself permission to delay replies or not respond at all. When my mother sent a carefully worded email with the subject line, "just checking in," I didn't even open it. Not because I was angry, because I didn't owe her closure she'd never offered me. Luke went quiet too. Rumor had it he'd left Texas for Arizona. Started some crypto consulting scheme. I heard through a cousin he was trying to rebrand himself as a financial strategist. I didn't follow up, because I was no longer in the business of chasing people who used my love as leverage. Instead, I started something of my own. With Mira's help, I launched the Collins Initiative, a nonprofit offering free financial literacy workshops for young women, especially those from families like mine. We partnered with local community colleges and women's shelters. The first time I spoke at a workshop, I was nervous. Me? A teacher? But as I looked into a room full of young women with that same quiet anxiety in their eyes, wondering how they'd ever afford their futures, I knew I belonged there. I told them my story, not the lottery part. The before part, working 3 jobs, learning to say no, figuring out what APR meant at midnight with a YouTube video. And I watched as heads nodded, pens scribbled, and something unspoken settled over the room. Solidarity. Not pity, not awe, just truth. And that was richer than any jackpot I'd ever win. My home now is modest by millionaire standards, but it's mine. 3 bedrooms, clean lines, a little garden in the back where I'm attempting to keep succulents alive. I host dinner for friends who ask nothing of me but my presence. I leave the wine out with no fear. Someone's going to spike it with entitlement. And slowly, carefully, I let people back in. Not the ones who burned bridges and then gaslit me for not rebuilding them, but the ones who sat in the ashes beside me without asking for more. Rachel, my old coworker turned best confidant, is still my person. She brings over wine, still insists I watch bad reality TV when I get too serious, and reminds me that healing is not a linear graph. "You don't need to be an Excel chart, Jenna," she laughs. "You're allowed to spike and dip." And you know what? She's right. Because life doesn't move like a straight line. It crashes, curves, spirals. But now, for the first time, I'm steering. It came on a Tuesday, a random, rainy afternoon when I was sipping chamomile tea and reviewing final approvals for my nonprofit's quarterly report. I was in my favorite hoodie, no makeup, hair in a bun so messy it should have had its own zip code. Peaceful, calm. Until I saw her name in my inbox. Subject line: "I don't deserve your time, but I need to say this. Samantha." I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before I even hovered over the text. My first instinct was to delete it, not out of spite, but self-preservation. I had spent months detoxing my mind from her voice, her logic, her curated concern. But curiosity, it's a hell of a drug, so I opened it. And I read, "Jenna, I know you have every reason to hate me. I won't defend what I did. I won't ask for forgiveness. I just want you to know the truth, finally, without manipulation, without agenda. You were never supposed to find out. That's the worst part. I told myself I was helping you organize your life, but somewhere along the line, it stopped being about you. It became about me and Luke. Yes, Luke was in on it, more than in on it. He orchestrated it. He came to me weeks before the lottery win, said he had a feeling you were sitting on something big. He'd overheard you talking in your sleep at Thanksgiving. About numbers, about everything changing soon. I laughed it off. But he was serious. He told me if I helped him guide you, we'd both benefit. Said it wasn't stealing, it was redistributing luck. I was broke, Jenna. Maxed out every card. My lease was weeks from eviction. He offered me a way out, and I took it. I convinced myself you'd share eventually, that what we were doing wasn't theft, it was proactive access. I watched you crumble. And I still kept going. I'm not proud of what I did. I'm not asking you to understand. I'm sorry, I've started over, took a retail job. Moved back in with my sister. No scams, no schemes, just silence. You owe me nothing, but I owe you the truth. Sam, I read it once. Then again, then a third time. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired, because even in confession, it was still about what she felt. Her guilt, her shame, her consequences. Not my trauma, but one sentence stood out like a blinking red light. Luke orchestrated it. I believed her. Because I'd seen it, how he always hovered at the edges of disaster, nudging chaos forward without ever getting blood on his hands. And now, the silence from him made sense. He hadn't vanished from guilt. He'd vanished because the plan failed, and he didn't do failure. So I dug, not to re-engage, but to understand. I contacted Mira, told her I wanted a quiet investigation into Luke's current dealings. Nothing illegal, just eyes open. 2 weeks later, she handed me a folder. Luke was in Nevada, operating under an alias, running a fake crypto consulting firm and soliciting angel investors for a blockchain lifestyle platform. No licenses, no registered business, just a website full of buzzwords and stock photos. Worse, he was using my name. Buried in the metadata of one PDF pitch was a claim, founded with seed funding from Collins Ventures Trust. My trust? That was the final straw. Mira initiated legal takedown notices, cease and desist letters. We documented everything, froze anything remotely associated with that branding, and then we filed an official fraud report with state authorities. Because if Luke wanted to build his next empire on lies, he'd do it without my shadow. I never responded to Samantha's email, not because I didn't appreciate the truth, but because some bridges are too charred to walk back across, even with good intentions. And maybe she's healing now. Maybe Luke will face real consequences. Maybe time will stretch out and blur the edges of all this betrayal, but for me, the apology didn't change the past. It just clarified the present. I wasn't naive anymore, but I also wasn't bitter. I was informed, and that's a far more powerful thing to be. It's strange how the loudest betrayals don't echo. They settle, quiet and cold, like snow over the life you thought you were building. I didn't lose everything when I won the lottery. I gained clarity. That clarity came with a cost. Family ties snapped under pressure. Friendships withered in greed's shadow. But in the silence that followed, I finally heard my own voice. I stopped asking who deserves my help and started asking who respects my boundaries. I stopped wondering how I could keep everyone happy and started asking why I thought I had to. Because here's the truth they don't put in the fine print of a lottery ticket. The real win isn't money, it's agency. The power to choose your circle, the power to say no without apology, the power to walk away from guilt, from manipulation, from the lies they told you about what you owed them. It took betrayal to teach me that love without respect isn't love. It's control in disguise. And if someone only values you when you're useful to them, That's not family, that's a transaction. I'm not here to tell you I've got it all figured out. Healing isn't a destination, it's a daily choice. Some mornings I still flinch when my phone buzzes. Some nights I replay old conversations, wondering if I missed the red flags, if I enabled the very people who turned on me. But I don't stay there. Because the woman I am now doesn't live in what ifs. She lives in what is. And what is good. I have peace. I have purpose. I have people in my life who pour back into me, who see my boundaries as love, not rejection. Who show up, not for my money, but for me. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt like your worth is conditional, tied to what you give or earn or endure, I want you to know, you're not selfish for protecting your peace. You're not cold for walking away from people who only show up with open hands. And you're not alone. Sometimes the most life-changing thing you can do is say, "This is enough. I choose me." Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with someone you loved? What gave you the courage? What did you learn? Share your story in the comments. Because the more we speak truth, the less shame wins. And if this resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. There are more stories to tell. And maybe yours is next.